Please welcome to the stage, Lindiwe Majele Sibanda.
Part of my umbilical cord is buried in Lower Gweru village in Zimbabwe, at the doorstep of a thatched hut which used to be my grandmother's bedroom. My grandmother Mahembe was a great woman. Agriculture was in her blood. Her local community named her Mahembe, a Zulu name which means a woman who wears overalls, because she worked hard. She would get us up at 4 a.m, all in prayer. And her prayer was always, I wish all my grandchildren would grow up to be farmers and feed not just their families, but the whole of Zimbabwe. She would work on her 1-acre plot where she kept goats, she kept cattle, she had a mixed farm with corn, she had an orchard, she had a vegetable garden, and she had a bean patch. And all this was to feed not just her 6 children and her 50 grandchildren, but the entire community around her. It is no surprise that I then chose a career in agriculture. I was lucky enough to get a government scholarship to go and study in Egypt. When I got to Egypt, life was not too different from Zimbabwe. But after my first degree, I got another scholarship to go and study in England. There, life was different. What was most different was the food. Right at the hostel where we stayed, they served us hamburgers. They served us French fries. They served pizza. And there was soda anytime you wanted. And I enjoyed that. 4 times a day, I would drink Coca-Cola. These are things I never afforded when I grew up, and when I saw it plenty and affordable, I enjoyed and indulged. I graduated and went back and took up a job at the local university. And within the first 2 months, I met my Mr. Handsome and got married. Life was fun. Just the 2 of us, graduates, working as professors at the university. We lived the life. We had arrived. We could eat out as much as we can, and Zimbabwe had moved on by then, and just next to the university, a food court had opened, and all the French fries, McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Fish, Kentucky Fried Chicken was just at our doorstep. Mr. Handsome would pick me up lunchtime. We'll go in our Mini Cooper car and park, open our doors, and enjoy pizza. And he loved his French fries. After work, we would go to the college bar every single day without fail, because that's where you caught up with the local gossip. We would drink all the sodas, anything we wanted. After that, we would play squash or go swimming, and then go out and eat out. There was no need to cook at home. After all, we're educated, and development is about affording anything you want. That was the benchmark where we were. Within a year, I got my first child, a bouncing 9-pound baby. Just as well, it was within the first year, because if we had delayed, village elders would have been summoned to sit us down to find out if there's a problem. So we got that right. My grandmother, who was still alive then, sent my eldest aunt, who is my favorite, Auntie Alice, to come and look after me, to make sure that in my new responsibilities of looking after this baby, I do not neglect Mr. Handsome, but also that I'm well fed with our traditional foods and would improve my milk laid down. So she prepared the traditional brew, she prepared all the lovely traditional foods, and my Aunt Alice made sure every day at 5 a.m. I got a pot full of porridge to eat. I got my lunch with the goat meat that my grandmother used to prepare when I was a kid. And then for dinners, it was all the vegetables, all from my grandmother's field. Auntie Alice used to say 4 full months, and the idea being by 4 months, the baby's old enough to be weaned onto solids, and that's a good time for her to turn her back and go to her own farm in the village. The moment she turned her back, we went back to our fried French fries, because that's the food, that's the life. And the measure where I come from is when you eat out, it means you've arrived, you can afford. I had my second child after 3 years, and by the 5th year of marriage, I had 3 children. A lot had changed in those 5 years. I could no longer go and play squash and go swimming. But one thing that didn't change is the food that we ate. Even though Aunt Alice would come those 4 months, we would still go back to our food. University-wise, I was doing very well. But one big change was my body. Before I knew it, I was weighing 220 pounds. The world told me I was happy. We come from a community where big means you can afford what you want to eat, you are happy, you're healthy. So what's your problem? You've got the money, spend it on yourself. So because I was doing so well, I was invited to go and speak in a global conference, which was on food security, the area I study. I prepared my speaking notes, and my message was very clear. Africa needs to feed Africa. We need to improve productivity, and our families can feed themselves. That's a message that was clear. I got to England, there were 3 keynote speakers. We took up the stage just like this one. The first speaker was from Europe, and he addressed the topic of global food security by unpacking that food security is about food you produce, is about access and markets. It's also about utilization, and developed countries are not doing well because they're wasting a lot of food. If only they could reduce waste, Africa would not be starving. I went, yeah, I'm going to get a great hook from that speech because I'm talking about an Africa that needs to improve productivity. The second speaker was from India. She took the floor and explained that in the 60s in India, they had gone through massive starvation, big hunger, but thanks to the Green Revolution, they produced a lot of rice and a lot of wheat, but they are now facing hidden hunger. I went, oh, hidden hunger? That's close to what we're facing in Africa. But she went on to elaborate that as a result of this hidden hunger, there is obesity, there are diseases like hypertension and diabetes, and now they're facing stunting, massive problems, all to do with agriculture and nutrition. I sat on my chair, about to stand up, and when I was called, I looked down. There was I, wanting to represent a continent that is hungry, a continent that needs to increase productivity, and I was representing in my body an overweight person, overfed, and just the opposite of what I was standing to advocate for. I was filled with shame. As I stood up, I took the podium and started to talk, only to realize I had forgotten my speaking notes on my chair. Instead of going back to pick up my notes, I just rambled on and just went on and on for 20 minutes. I even forgot I had a PowerPoint I had to put up. I was just filled with shame. When I finished speaking, I took my position with the other speakers and waited for questions. Full 1 hour of questions, all directed at the 2 speakers and nothing for me. I knew I had messed up. The moment we stepped down, I went straight to my hotel, packed my books, and caught the next flight back home. I just could not face coming back to the conference. As I flew back to Zimbabwe, I was clear in my head. Something had to change. I got home. As I opened the door, looking forward to seeing my babies, guess who had come to visit, all without notice? Auntie Alice had come from the village. I was so excited because she was my favorite aunt. I was like, Auntie, you're here. This is great. She pulled back and said, girl, what has happened to you? What have you been eating? I got a flashback of the London conference and all the things I'd had, And tears started coming down my face. I'm like, Auntie, you can't do this to me. And she said, look here, we can fix this. Come and see what I brought for you. I brought all the harvest from my garden and from my farm. We've got to fix this. She went straight from the fridge and opened the fridge. 20 bottles of Coca-Cola. She just pulled them out and said, this is sugar. Get it out of your fridge. No more soda in this house. She went for expensive pre-packed foods, the beggars, and she said, we're going to fix this. You've got to eat right. Auntie Alice stayed with us 4 months. The first 2 weeks were tough. I would wake up at night in sweat, dreaming that I cheated and had a soda, just to realize that it's all a dream. My feet were sore, tingling sensation of just dehydration because I was craving for a soda, but I was so determined to make this work. End of first month, I had lost 1 dress size. By second month, I had lost 2 dress sizes. But at the same time, my friends were talking. 2 brave friends came to me and said, are you sure you are okay? Yeah. We come from a place where you lose weight, you need the doctor. And unfortunately, you don't need the doctor because of diabetes and hypertension. You need the doctor because it's HIV and AIDS. I assured them that this was deliberate. I wanted to change. But then they just smiled. I went on with the good food that Auntie was preparing. After 4 months, I had moved from size 20 to a size 12. Auntie turned her back and went. And now the same friends came to me and said, what drug are you on? We want that. As I go about my everyday work as an advocate for food security, I now emphasize nutrition security. Every day I wake up to cook for my family with my own hands, to cook my own food. And one thing I know for sure, my grandmother, Mahembe, is smiling in her grave. Auntie Alice, who is 110 years old now, is happy that I will get to her age. But I leave it to her. Thank you.